This is the To Health With That, Naturally Healthy in No Time podcast for big health topics taken in small bites. I'm your host, naturopathic Dr. Amy Newsel, and this is Season 1, all about the MTHFR mutation. This week, let's talk about why your best dose of methylfolate changes over time. So we've talked about folate dosing strategies because the best dose of methylfolate for your body will change through the course of your MTHFR journey. The three strategies that we've covered are intuitive dosing. This is my favorite, and it's perfect if you and your body communicate well together. When you're stressed, if you have a difficult day coming up, you're feeling not perfect, or you know you're doing some extra detox, then increase your dose slightly. If you're feeling amazing and don't need extra support, then just don't take it. Just listen to what your body needs at that moment. And I honestly do this with all of my supplements, not just methylfolate. Another strategy is mixed dosing. This is best if you're a routine kind of person and really rely on that routine to get your supplements into you in the morning. If you like the stability of taking a small dose each day, which would be smaller than your maximum tolerated dose, you can add up to your maximum on days that are a little bit harder. There's also the method championed by Ben Lynch, Dr. Ben Lynch, which is called pulse dosing. He says if you feel great, decrease your dose, and if you feel poorly, increase, which is a lot actually like intuitive dosing, except I'm working more proactively and he's working more reactively. Whichever language appeals to you, go with it. These dosing strategies cover day-to-day fluctuations, but at the beginning of your MTHFR journey, you will also have longer-term fluctuations. So let's talk about that. First off, what's going on here? Why do your 5L-methyl tetrahydrofolate needs change over time? Why can't this just be easy? When I get frustrated with the general weirdness of MTHFR, I try to remember the amazing journey my body has been on with this mutation for my entire life. That journey goes something like this. 1. Birth. My bucket's mostly empty, and if you don't know what I'm talking about with bucket, look through some of the past posts or listen to past episodes. I'm fresh and clean, and the world has not yet started to hammer me with crazy crap. Step 2, childhood. Things are moving along. Life has some stressors like, family and socialization, schooling, potty training, eating greens, but mostly things are pretty good. Bucket's taking a few hits, but it's nowhere near full. Step 3, adolescence. The hormones kick in, the moods kick in, full-blown teenage angst really adds a bunch of stress to the bucket. Step 4, new adulthood. Life starts getting a whole lot more real. There's things like bills and jobs and maybe even career prospects. There's relationships and toxin exposures and new car smells and ratty apartments. Bucket is kind of getting close to the top. Step 5, your bucket fills up. Now, this can happen actually at any time, but for many people, it's in adolescence or new adulthood, and then some people are lucky enough to wait until their later years, midlife maybe, or even beyond. Your body's dealt with enough stressors that your bucket, which is your natural tolerance for stressors given your genes, nutrition, and epigenetics, fills up. This is when big symptoms start, when the wheels fall off the cart, so to speak. This is also when a lot of people go digging through their medical stuff and figure out that they have the MTHFR mutation. The next step is, people generally start to work with their methylation. And this is quite possibly the moment where you're reading this post or listening to this podcast. Awesome. Welcome. At some point, you'll add in a 5L-MTHF, and I'm hoping you start with a low dose and don't make any sudden moves. In the beginning, tolerance changes slowly. After that, you might experience some bumps on the road. This happens, and it's all totally normal. At some point, your dose will increase. Gradually, you'll find that your body can tolerate more methylfolate without having a total meltdown. If you haven't experienced the meltdown yet, please be confident that this is a thing that happens on the MTHFR journey, and it's going to be okay. Bear in mind that you will try some dosage changes when your body isn't ready and have mini meltdowns, but slowly and steadily, your dose will increase. And this is both the dose you can tolerate and the dose at which your body functions optimally. This phase in which your dose is maybe gradually increasing, can last for months or even years. Then suddenly, the dose you've been taking for weeks, months, or years is way too much, because MTHFR is like that. We talk about this a lot in Genetic ROCKSTARS, which is our MTHFR community, but too much 5-LMTHF feels crazy. Anxious, hyperactive, jittery, sleepless, or completely black depressed. It's a bit different for everyone, but if you've ever felt it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. After that, your new normal dose, quote unquote, is lower. You don't need as much methylfolate most days, and you can start to use something like intuitive dosing. Take a little more if it's a more stressful time for your body, and a little less if it's easy breezy. This phase can comfortably last the rest of your life. But why? Why does the need for 5-LMTHF go up and down? So we're going to look at this same scenario, this same story, but behind the scenes, and see what's going on with this progression. We'll start with all of the stages pre-bucket filling up. In these phases, your body's meeting stressors, and it's okay. You have enough resources to keep up, and enough room in your bucket that you aren't having major symptoms. Toxins are coming in, sure, and if you can't deal with them, you just pack them away into your long-term storage, which we're going to call the backlog. Now, your bucket fills up. Symptoms start, and it can feel like your body has completely changed overnight. But it actually hasn't. It just reached the tipping point where your bucket ran out of room. So all of the things that you've been hiding under the surface are coming out into the open. It's pretty messy. You start to work with methylation. So you eliminate folic acid, add in natural food sources of folate, and eventually add in a 5-L-methyltetrahydrofolate or an alternative if you don't tolerate it. There's up and down days, but mostly things are moving forward. Your body is starting to work on the bucket, and you're actively taking some of the things out of the bucket, like stressors, like folic acid, which is actually a stressor for us. And you're also fixing some of the nutritional deficiencies around methylation, which also adds to your bucket. So that bucket level is going down, and hopefully some of the symptoms are going down with it. Then there's some bumps on the road. So as your body gains resources and starts to move towards more balanced methylation, it starts to look at some of the toxins in long-term storage. This is your backlog. Backlog can cause bumps because if your body gets too excited and mobilizes too much of the backlog, then you can start to feel really toxic. Backlog is also what I attribute to the dosage increases. So next, your 5-LMTHF dose increases. As your body gets stronger and the flow of methylation resources gets more stable and more reliable, then the trickle of backlog increases to more of a flow of backlog. And this is what your body is actually pulling out of storage in order to be able to deal with at that time. Your body's really digging into this. And so your need for resources in order to methylate increases because we do methylate a lot of our toxins. This process can last for months, for years. For me, I took 5-LMTHF for somewhere between 2 and 3 years at my maximum dose, which was 3 milligrams, before I hit the next phase. And the next phase is, suddenly, my usual dose was way too much. And actually, when this happened to me, it took me a few really horrible days to figure out what was the cause of my sudden burst of manic energy. I'd been taking 3 milligrams of methylfolate most days for the last couple of years, and it didn't occur to me that it was suddenly causing problems. But it was. This was the point where that eager flow of backlog tapered down to a trickle. My body wasn't so urgently clearing out the long-term storage anymore because it had finished the most urgent part. At that point, I did decrease my dose and ended up right around 1 milligram, a little more, a little less. And that was perfect. And maintenance is the final phase. Now, at a lower dose, which again for me is 1 milligram, your body can do its daily work, which is your bucket, and its trickle of backlog without so much extra support. Awesome. This is where we want to stay. This progression is completely normal, and also not as smooth and stepwise as I'm making it sound in this blog post. Over the years, there will be ups and downs with dosages, and there can even be weekly or monthly fluctuations. Women, your dose can change with your cycle. It's just a bit strange, but dosages do change. Still, The overall trend follows this kind of predictable pattern, and it's important to remember that your bucket is never completely empty because there's always stressors in your life, and your backlog is never completely gone because we are humans in a toxic environment of our own making. It's also interesting to note that if you stop supporting your methylation completely, then things will stay stable for a while, but as your body runs out of the resources that it needs to methylate, then your bucket and your backlog begin to refill. And eventually, you're back to the crisis point where your bucket overflows. So it's far easier to just stay in maintenance mode. And again, maintenance mode will be a lower dose of methylfolate than your one-time maximum dose. I hope this is helpful and clear. If it's not, send me a question, or better yet, join Genetic Rockstars and become part of the community conversation about ongoing MTHFR issues. See you there.